Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We're back again with Rob, my friend, and we are joined by Simon Bamford, who is, he's got an amazing tenure in the horror community. He was in Hellraiser, Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, Nightbreed, Book of Blood, and what's the documentary you like, Rob?
You're also cool, Brewster.
Yeah. I'm anything but cool.
I feel you there. So yeah, we'll start off with obviously Hellraiser. I don't know why that's obvious. We'll start off with the first few films. He played Butterball, who we see here, who's he's very slimy is the word I've used. He looks like he's moist when you like to touch.
Such a fantastic word, moist. Moist. It's very difficult to say the word moist
without laughing, especially.
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, kind of the sexual connotations of being moist is actually before each take, Butterball was doused down in this goo to make him look like he was sweating heavily. I think Clive wanted the idea that he was sweating because he was overweight. He sweated a lot. Although I'm overweight and I don't sweat a lot, so it's just complete cliche, really. I don't think I do anyway. No, it's not too bad. So these days in Hollywood, they have this special gunk which they put on. It's all kind of proper stuff and it makes you look gooey. And for example, Alien, has it dripping from his chin and stuff. Yeah. It's just like goo. But back in 1986, when we made Hellraiser, they didn't have any of the stuff. So they sent the runner, who was I think 17, out to the local chemist to buy every tube of KY jelly that they had in the store. And being kind of 16, 17, he had no idea what KY jelly was for normally. And he came back bright red.
Chemist must have thought he was in for a good night.
A wild one,
yeah.
So yeah, and then they before each take they would douse my head with this stuff. So I always thought it would be a good head fuck. I could just slide my head in easily if need be.
Yeah, you know what? I always thought you looked sweaty, but I didn't know that was the process you went through, just like a load of KY jelly, which I mean, like you said, the runner must have been very embarrassed, but I mean, like you said, easy entry is what they're looking for.
Well, it's quite typical in a way, because on the last podcast we had with your co-star Nicholas Vince, we touched upon about Hellraiser having like very a lot of erotic, a very erotic film. People obviously know it as a horror film, but there's a lot of erotic vibes and BDSM and things like that, and so the KY jelly tops it off, really.
It does. And interestingly, you should say about the eroticism, when my niece got to an age where her mum decided she could finally see Uncle Simon in his Hellraiser films, the only bit she fast forwarded through were the erotic bits, the sex bits, basically. She didn't mind the horror and everything else and the gore, but she wasn't quite ready for the sex bits, which I think is an interesting way of deciding what is allowable, what is and what is not. But yeah, I've always saw it as a love story, first and foremost, and that's the themes he kind of wrote about a lot. I worked with him in Fringe Theatre before he became successful, along with Doug Bradley and Oliver Parker, who was the removals man in Hellraiser 1 and 2 and was also in Nightbreed, Narcissus, or was that Nick's sidekick. Anyway, so they were all in Fringe Theatre together, and a lot of the themes that Clive wrote about, because he used to write plays then, were about horror and dark issues, but always love was kind of at the first and foremost. People don't think of Clive as being a writer of love stories, but a lot of his stuff is based on the human heart, even if the human heart happens to be outside of somebody's body beating in his hands.
Well, the book title of Hellraiser is The Hellbound Heart, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So with being, I've read this many times before, but Butterball originally had lines, didn't he, in Hellraiser?
He did, yeah, that's right.
Remember what the lines were, by any chance?
Yes, they're etched on my memory. So his first was, "Perhaps we prefer you." And his next line was, "Impossible." I can't remember what the others were, but and it was all fine, all was going fine, but I had these disgusting, gross, false teeth that were all kind of rotting, which were dentures, which were glued on top of my own teeth. And when I got them in, I couldn't actually put my mouth together, so I couldn't put my lips together. And if you can't put your lips together, you can't say plosives, which are P's and B's. So impossible became impossible. And and obviously that's not very Cenobite. It's more comedy.
It's quite interesting though, because those lines were used by the
yes.
Perhaps We Prefer You. They were used, weren't they, in the film?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was a lot of discussion, huddles in corners. At that point, it was still a very low budget movie. I think the budget to start with was 700,000 for the whole of the first Hellraiser. So they were wondering about filming it anyway and then going into ADR afterwards and overdubbing it. But they said they weren't expecting to go into ADR because they didn't think they could really afford it. So there were huddles in corners, and eventually they decided that they'd just take all my lines away and give them to the female Cenobite. So, yeah, I was gutted, literally, physically gutted.
Talking about obviously being good, but when we spoke to Nick last time, he obviously in Hellbound Hellraiser 2, you guys died, don't you? And obviously they didn't use you guys as the actors.
Yeah, I mean, whether we actually die, I don't know. I mean, does a Cenobite ever die? I don't.
Punish back to hell then. Push back to hell. Sorry, not punish. Maybe. My
character actually, he has a house fall on top of him, but you don't really see him go. So I think more they've been pushed back to hell, maybe with kind of black marks against them. What was the question? when obviously when you turn back into humans, it's not they weren't played by you, were they? I mean, I was 25 when we made Hellraiser, and I was skinny as fuck. And the reason they wanted somebody, this is a kind of X-rated interview, I take it. I don't have to mind my P's and Q's. You can always beep it anyway.
Oh no, go for it. Go wild.
I was very, very skinny, and the reason they wanted a skinny actor to play a large man was I had this great big gouging wound in my stomach. So the stomach, kind of the body was like a fiberglass section with a very deep wound in it, which they'd filled with blood and more KY jelly before each take. And the idea was that I would be able to, they filmed it. Clive's original idea was that I would have my whole hand inside my stomach and be playing around, perhaps pulling the odd bit of kind of innard out. Really gross, but it got cut by the censors. Clive, interestingly enough, Clive, he's such an intelligent man. He deliberately filmed and put in sequences in the first cut of Hellraiser that the censors saw that he knew were crossing a line and would go too far, knowing that they would cut a certain amount of stuff, but hopefully leave the other stuff that he really wanted to have in. And it worked a treat. Everything he knew they would take out, they did. Everything that was still pushing boundaries, they left. So he was just, and sadly, my playing with my innards and pulling my intestines out were one of the things that got cut. But I needed, obviously, to have that deep wound, and needed somebody skinny inside. So when he reverted back to the character in Hellraiser 2, no, it's Hellraiser 1 when I had the house fall on top of me. Yeah, they got a large actor to stand in to be the character I reverted. Skinny, gorgeous, handsome young man was actually Butterball before he was Butterball. Do you know what I mean? You can laugh. That was a joke. Nick was a bit, well, not what's the word? He wasn't like Nick, but he was very gutted that he didn't get to be the human form. Were you also a bit like, oh, I wish I could have been the human version, or? No, I always thought, I mean, Nick's was an odd one because he turned into a little boy. Yeah. None of us really saw coming. I don't remember that being in the script. But mine, I always thought, it's a bit of a leap of faith for the audience to think that a young man who's quite skinny was actually this big guy. So I always thought they probably would. I'm going to apologise. Now we're live. I will apologise if I'm talking too much. I did explain to you guys earlier, but I haven't had any caffeine for a month. And today I had loads of caffeine, so I'm actually talking 10 to the dozen. I can hear myself. I can't. No, it's fine. It's great for content. Great for content.
We can hear every word. It's good for the non-caffeine watchers.
I'm also on this, which is alcohol-free beer. It's what has become of me. What has become?
Does it actually taste good?
It's pathetic. I've got people not unfollowing me on social media now because they're so disappointed.
Butterball wouldn't go dry for January, would he?
Use KY jelly and get in those pumps. That's what he'd do.
That's why he never died, probably. In the first film, the house probably slid up him.
Knocked him into a pub and
January, he turns vegan and does a lot of good deeds.
Are you vegan? Are you vegan? Are you?
No, I'm not.
No. This has turned into a very different kind of podcast now.
I'm happy. Right, we'll get back on track. Nightbreed. Let's talk about Nightbreed.
Okay.
Yeah, what was that like? Obviously, it's like that was another one of Clive. I know it's meant to be hell for Clive Barker in general for like the release and everything. You played Onaka, is that how it's pronounced? Sorry.
You make it sound like knackers. Right?
Yeah, sorry. Every time I said it, I was like too close to knackers. I'm not sure. Obviously, you like being in the sun, don't you?
Sounds better.
Knackers, yeah. I'm just calling you knackers from now on.
Class pronunciation is Onaka.
Okay. Well, I'm sadly I'm from a small Welsh seaside town, so my pronunciation of stuff is not great.
I've got a surprise for you behind me, but she's falling down, so I'm just going to stand her up. Okay, I've hidden her. What
is it?
Do you know what? For a second, I thought I was watching Psycho. That's how I felt.
My mum.
Yeah, are you in a wine cellar or a basement at this moment in time? I don't remember where we were.
Nightbreed,
that was it. Jesus, stepping down again. That's throwing me off. Nightbreed, yeah. What was that like? What was that like for you?
An absolute joy for me personally, because I didn't have, like Nick, I couldn't see anything. I couldn't breathe through my nose because my nostrils were sealed up. I couldn't hear through my ears because there were no ear holes in the makeup. I could just hear through it, but it was like 2 inches thick. And then I couldn't, Mrs. Wiltshire, will you?
I keep on giggling because every single time you're speaking, the head's coming into shots.
I'm just going to, I'll bring her down here. You can see her later. Down. Stay down there. Down.
You're right.
Oh, God, yes.
He's all right,
it's just laughing when he's talking.
So anyway, Nightbreed. Yes. So for me, and also we were I live 2 hours from Pinewood. So you'd be getting up at 2 in the morning to be at the studio for 4 or 5 o'clock to go into makeup. I mean, Nick told you, and my makeup, they didn't take that long actually, but because the others did, and they always want you to be ready for 7, 8 o'clock just in case you're first filmed. We never were. Sometimes we went the whole day in the makeup without being filmed on Hellraiser. But so Nightbreed for me was a joy. I could roll up. Oh, also we wouldn't. I don't know if Nick told you this, but they wouldn't allow us on Hellraiser to eat food, especially fried fruit like breakfasts. So we'd be in 4 or 5 in the morning. We'd roll up into the makeup, and then we'd sit there while they put it all on us, and then everybody else would be turning up at 7:30, 8 o'clock, and you could smell this lovely fried breakfast being cooked, and the egg butties going around, and the bacon, absolutely lovely. But we said, breakfast, time for breakfast on the first day. No, they said, because it was kind of early-ish days of prosthetics. They said, we're not sure. We think maybe the oil will come out of your skin and melt the glue, which is holding everything to you. So you can't have it. So we got orange juice through a straw while everybody else was getting breakfast, who'd only just arrived. So anyway, back to Nightbreed. Sorry, I digress. So yeah, for me, I could roll up at 7 o'clock, look at all the poor fuckers who've been sitting in makeup for hours and hours and hours, eat my fried breakfast in front of them, including Nick, by the way, who was in makeup forever. I had some tattoos, which had been painted on my arms and stuff, which were hand painted with wax crayons. And then they had this, they don't do it this way anymore, but they had this special stuff that they put on the top and actually seals it to your skin. It's like a second skin on top. So, but each one of those had to be hand painted. So that took a little bit of time, but not that long. And then the only prosthetics I had, apart from the big dying scene, spoiler, was I had prosthetic nipples.
Oh.
But one scene where I got beaten up by a load of cops, and I had a medal pinned through my nipple, and one of them grabs the medal and pulls it off, and my starts to bleed and everything. So in every day I had to have these prosthetic nipples, because I actually have inverted nipples.
This is my favourite podcast ever. So you're just very funny, Simon. Sorry, you make me
I think it's
so
the
much.
most we've laughed in the podcast.
Yeah.
We're usually quite nervous during a podcast. This one, I don't get me wrong, all the previous podcasts have been wonderful, but I've never heard us laugh so much.
Yeah, you were very funny. All you spoke about was KY jelly and nipples, and about it.
Yeah.
I'm about it.
There was nobody to stick the nipples on, because the great thing about Nightbreed, they had more different monsters than any other film that had ever been made, and they were in the Guinness Book of Record. I don't know if that's still the case, but it wouldn't surprise me if they're still. So there were no artists available. So I actually became an expert at finding my prosthetic nipple casts and sticking them on myself.
Put that on the CV. That's a good one for the CV.
If out there ever wants to have prosthetic nipples applied, I do know what I'm doing.
The nipple guy.
Basically, we'll put this on like a link to some sort of nipple sort of website we're going to make for you.
Put it in the bio of the video.
Yeah.
Simon Bamford, nipple expert.
Could be my new niche. I've been looking for a niche job.
That and a collection of heads.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which kind of brings me neatly. No, shall I carry on with Nightbreed?
No, I've been really interested in the head now.
The hype is there now for the head. I think people are going to want to know.
Okay, so this is the head. So this is a prosthetic that I was given. I played this 85-year-old lady in a film called Mrs. Wiltshire, which was part of a series on Amazon Prime called Dark Ditties Presents. Yeah. And when I'd done the very last day of filming, they actually gave me the prosthetic. So, and this is her. She's absolutely amazing.
Very cool.
Look like this, Reese, Rob. Yeah, you did it at 95. 95. Really lovely.
At first, I generally thought it was the mum in the Nutty Professor.
I couldn't hear what you said.
At first, I thought it was the mother from the Nutty Professor. The glasses it is, and the big hair.
Yeah, big hair. Well, her hair's quite big too. But no.
With Dark Ditty. Did you see how you say it? Sorry.
Yes, Dark Ditties with a D.
That's it. Yes, Ditty. Same thing. Obviously, you're an executive producer, aren't you, on that?
Oh yes, whatever that means. Yes, I am. I'm going to put it down.
I keep going to watch it and want to. I know it's on Amazon and it's on my watch list, but it looks very cool that you've got Barbie Wilds in an episode. Am I right with that? And so's Nick, and that head is just freaking me out now. I'm having the best time.
Just out the way. So, Barbie is in episode 1 and episode 5.
Yeah.
I was trying to do something rude with her then. Let's get down. Will you get down?
Oh, God.
In a minute, her head will just come up, just the hair.
This is my favourite thing ever.
Episode 1 of that. Also, Nick Vince was in episode 1 as well.
Yeah.
Episode 1 was called The Offer, and it was 7 strangers, I think, invited to a country house. It was like Agatha Christie meets Saw.
Ooh.
7 strangers invited to this mysterious country house with the promise of being rich beyond their wildest dreams, and what happens to them. So very Agatha Christie in its setup, but very Saw in the gore and the stuff. And Barbie was a Canadian daughter of a multi-billionaire, and Nick was a camp ex-West End star, and I was an investment banker. So that was fun. And then Barbie was also in episode 5, which has just come out actually on Amazon Prime, called Dad. And in that, she plays a TV host who is interviewing a couple of religious types when the whole of the world goes to pot, just before the zombie apocalypse happens. Yeah, yeah, they're all very good. Dark Ditties. Yes, obviously I would say that because I'm executive producer. So, but definitely worth. They were free. I think they're now 99p each or $3.49 for the whole series. There's 5 episodes so far. I have got the script for episode 6 here, which is the series finale, which is just there.
Very cool.
So, and that's fun too. In fact, yeah, it's okay. Spoiler, not really spoiler, but Mrs. Wiltshire, who this is, comes back in episode 6, but as a younger woman, which is going to be interesting. So,
yeah.
Well, for £3.49 for an entire series, you can't go wrong. How long are each episode?
So they started off as kind of shorts. So I think the first one was probably about 50 minutes, but now they're right up to full length. So I think the last one was like an hour and 20.
That's like a film, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, they've gradually been getting longer. We're hoping that they've got to deal with the people who make. Perhaps I shouldn't say that. Oh, what the hell? They've got. They've got to. If they can find the platform who will take them on, i.e. BBC, Shudder, a platform that will take them on, they have a very prestigious, well-known company who has offered them the money to reshoot them all with a proper budget, because most of them have been done on a very low budget. But what I have managed to do, which is incredible, really, is bring in some wonderful actors. So we've got Ken Cranham, who's Shanard in Hellraiser 2, and Ken's done frigging tons of work. He's really, really one of UK's lovies. Most favourite, wonderful actor. We've also got a couple of Game of Thrones actors. We've got Gary Smart is the producer. That's not what I meant. Ian Gelder, who played one of the Lannisters in Game of Thrones, and we've also got Mark Wingett from The Bill and Snow White and the Huntsman. So we've managed to get some really good actors, and I think what attracts them, and is in each episode we get to play these wildly different characters. So Mrs. Wiltshire is episode 2. It's called Mrs. Wiltshire, and it's about this old lady who's trapped in a house by the spirit of her abusive husband, who's played. I was married in episode 2 to who plays Les Battersby, Bruce Jones.
Oh, he lives around there.
He lives locally to us.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, Bruce and I have been in all 5 episodes, and he's also in number 6. So yeah, Bruce was like a used car salesman in episode 1. He was my husband in episode 2.
Sounds like a Les Battersby story, that does.
Yeah, sounds Bizzle being it.
Cut my arm off. Episode 4, he was a gay TV evangelist, TV ghost hunter. And episode 5, him, myself, and another actor were stranded in this zombie apocalypse, and we kind of got together and were trying to survive. So yeah, Bruce, I've done lots with Bruce.
No, it's great, because like I say, he is very much a local celebrity around here. We see him many times, we walk past.
Yeah, I see quite a lot. Do you want to talk about Brewster? That's your thing. Yeah.
So obviously in the documentary, when Fright Night was released on Blu-ray, they obviously coincided it with a documentary called You're So Cool, Brewster.
Yeah,
and you, Simon, got the real pleasure of taking on a role in this documentary, but in a different light, because this doesn't really happen, to my knowledge, in documentaries. You know, you sort of brought back Peter Vincent, who is played by the late Roddy McDowall. You brought him back to life, really. Sort of create this sort of mock trailer, wasn't it, kind of thing?
Yeah. So the way that came about, that Gary Smart, again, who made the Dark Ditties series, they'd interviewed us all from Hellraiser, because they created, before You're So Cool, Brewster, their previous documentary was Leviathan, which was a 7-hour about the making of Hellraiser, or the Hellraiser franchise. And how did it come about? So when they finished doing that, they knew that their next one was going to be You're So Cool, Brewster, and they wanted somebody. They'd managed to get Roddy McDowall's life cast, because sadly Roddy is no longer with us. But they wanted to have somebody playing Roddy McDowall, playing Peter Vincent, narrating the segments in between. And they thought, who do we know who looks a little bit like Roddy McDowall? And they suddenly went, oh, Simon does. So they emailed me and rang me and said, do you want to have a go? We've got this live cast, and and it would be quite a lot of stuff to learn, but we'd love to have you do it. And I thought, yeah, that would be a really interesting thing to do. So I said yes, and about 20 minutes later, they went online and announced that I was going to be narrating and doing all the links as Roddy McDowall in their next documentary. And the social media went absolutely mad. And there was tons of people going, oh, I'm not sure he'll be able to do that. Let's see what, those are big shoes to step in. And suddenly there was all this incredible pressure on me. Thankfully, another fellow Welshman came to my rescue, Martin Sheen.
Yes. Martin? No, Michael Sheen.
Martin Sheen's, Michael Sheen. So I contacted him. I don't know him, but I kind of and I said, how do you play somebody who was real, that people really know? How do you approach that? What do you do? And very thankfully, he came back, very gratefully, he came back and said, you kind of do as much research as you can, you read up as much as you can about them, you watch everything and anything you can. So you really immerse yourself in it, and then you forget all of it, and hopefully that will kind of just go with it. So yeah, that's what I did. It was great fun though. But it was kind of a weird one to do because I wasn't playing Roddy McDowall. I wasn't playing Peter Vincent, the normal person, as he was in Fright Night. I was playing Peter Vincent as he was when he was playing Peter Vincent doing his TV. This is probably, I can see you both glazing over now.
No, makes sense. I'm fully with it.
So Peter Vincent has this TV persona when he's presenting his TV show.
Yes.
And in Fright Night, you see this kind of over-the-top TV presenter that he plays. And then you see him behind the camera, and he's much more of this kind of rather sad actor. But neither of those are Roddy McDowall. So I was playing Roddy McDowall playing Peter Vincent playing this TV personality. So it was quite complicated. And if any criticism, thankfully most people have been very nice about it, but some people have said, oh, it wasn't like Roddy McDowall and it wasn't like Peter Vincent, but it is like my version of Roddy McDowall's TV presenter, and very cool and very, very, very sure of himself. I am Peter Vincent, vampire slayer. What was great about Roddy was he had this impeccable diction. So I was kind of, everything was absolutely precise. And interesting learning about Roddy, he was from Wales too. I don't know if you knew that. He moved.
I know they're British, but didn't know about Wales, no.
So he moved when he was, I think, 9 or 10 years old, might have been 11, to America, to New York with his mother. And within a few, while he was there, he got, he saw some people from LA who were trying to find a Welsh kid to be in this film, which I can't, How Green Is Your Valley, I think it was. So within months of being in New York, her whole family went over to LA. He played like the lead kid in this film. The film was hugely successful, and that was it. The rest is history. But back in those days, there was more of a studio system in Hollywood. So they would teach actors how to be on film and how to do the perfect diction and what angles looked best, all the stuff we don't really do anymore. But that's why Roddy became such a kind of iconic and great actor. And he was loved. One of the things I found was he was loved by everyone there. Nobody has a bad word to say about him. He was a real gentleman, evidently.
I generally see it as a bit of a missed opportunity as well, because I really generally believe, like, when you play Peter Vincent in the documentary and the resurrection of Dracula sort of thing, that to me, like, I thought as an opportunity, like, why is nobody contacting you and the people making the documentary to actually make some episodes, or maybe like do something like a prequel to sort of like, you know, like to Peter Vincent, like, you know, about his, because obviously we see him in the Fright Night sense, so we see him a part of the film, but life before, I mean, obviously I know he wasn't fighting vampires in real life before Fright Night sort of thing, but I still think there's a story there to be told. And if you've got someone like yourself who can recreate that actor, which you did, in my opinion, then I think it's a missed opportunity. I think, did Tom Holland at all comment at all?
It did. So I think there was a stage version of the Fright Nights, and they got in contact with me, not to play it, because obviously I couldn't, but just to kind of comment on it. But Tom Holland was he was talking about doing I think a Fright Night 3, and they did put me in contact, and I know that he was interested in using me to play Peter again, because it was very differently done by David Tennant and
the remake. Yeah,
completely different kind of feeling to it. So yeah, I mean, yes, Tom Holland took for anybody over 20, not that Tom Holland.
No.
I know Giles played Tom Holland.
Giles played Tom Holland. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, he is aware of me. I have met Chris Sarandon. So
wow, that's great.
One of the joys of doing the Hellraiser films and the Nightbreed films is that we get to go to the States a lot, and we get to go to conventions and meet some just awesome actors who we're all in awe of. Yeah. So one meal we went to, and of course after we finished the day's work at the convention, we all go out for a meal together, and we went to one meal, and there was several of the Jasons, and there was the four of us, and there was Robert Englund, and these like horror people that, you know, people sitting around this table just kind of having a meal and having a drink. That was
living Chad's dream here.
It's all right. I'm living free, you, Simon. Don't worry about it.
Chad is composed right now.
I'm on the inside. Don't worry.
No, it was so much fun. It was so much fun. So yes, so I did. And we were sitting in this big hall signing stuff and meeting people, and I suddenly realised directly opposite my eyesight was Chris Sarandon. So I kind of got my confidence together and went over to introduce myself and tell him, but I don't know if he really knew I was. Chris has had a bigger career than me, so.
I reckon, like I say, I mean, you know, it's not us trying to kiss your arse or anything like that, but your Peter Vincent, you know, recreation I thought was fantastic. I really think it's a missed opportunity to not do something with that, because there's Fright Night. I mean, have you heard of the For Love of Horror convention in Manchester?
Oh, I think we've been invited a couple of times. We haven't been able to go.
Yeah, because they've got Fright Night people coming to that, because you know, they've got Evil Ed, and Man Plays Charlie. Like these characters, like I say, they're very well loved, and I think to recreate something Fright Night, I think it's important. And like I say, if you're available to do it, they should do it. I'm putting the feelers out there for you, Simon. I want someone to watch this, because the person who made Your So-Called Brewster, Christopher Griffiths, is that
yeah, and Gary
I sort of know Chris. We speak a bit on Twitter. We're hopefully going to get him on the show, because, like I say, I think he's a very interesting documentary filmmaker, because he's done Leventia, is it, how do you say it? Leviathan, Your So-Called Brewster, the It documentary, which is due soon, and also RoboCop.
Yeah.
So, Chris, if you're watching, please get Simon involved.
Chris was the first, was the director on the first of the Dark Ditties as well.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd love to do it. The interesting thing was that from that, so the links were all incredibly long pieces of dialogue to camera, and they were all. Whereas if you're playing a scene as an actor, you normally will hang on to dialogue that makes sense. That one would, you take the flow and the ebbs that you say in everyday speech, and you would kind of cling onto the emotional sections of it, which makes it easy to learn. These were all narrations of. So you would have a list of actors' names or technicians' names and dates and when they did this and the effects. So it was all kind of very factual stuff that I had to learn. And they were long, long scenes. It took me ages to learn it. But because they realized I could learn such vast amounts of dialogue, which is why I ended up playing Mrs. Wiltshire. So that kind of led me to doing the Dark Ditties, which they then went on to do. And that Brewster went me to do Mrs. Wiltshire, because she spends a lot of her time talking to camera and has long monologues. I think the longest take we did was a 15-minute scene of literally 15 minutes of her talking to camera, which is terrifying as an actor, because you get into kind of minute 13 and minute 14 and you think half your brain's going, just don't screw this up now, please don't screw this up, and the other half of your brain is going, don't think about that, think about what you're doing, concentrate on being here now, and then the other part of your brain's going is kind of processing and still acting. It's yeah, scary to do a long take like that.
when you're doing a long take like that, does it actually feel like 15 minutes? Or because you're sort of so concentrated in the scene, it flies by? Well, I'm not too sure if it does, but like, what's your take on that kind of?
It's very intense. I spent a year learning Mrs. Wiltshire because there were so many long dialogues, monologues. So I was very prepped for it. I was very ready to do it. No, it doesn't feel that long, especially as each scene has so many ebbs and flows and shadows and lights and emotional kind of hooks within it. You're really just so focused on being in the moment and concentrating generally that you're not really aware of it. But it was fun. I loved playing Mrs. Wiltshire. On the last day of shooting, she wasn't in, but she was intensely in all the other ones, and I play a secondary character also, another one right at the end. And the last day of filming her scenes, we all felt like this person had died. It was really upsetting saying goodbye to this woman, because she's a very damaged character anyway, and she just felt like a real person. Even to me, who was playing her, she felt like this sad, lonely, abused woman, and it's very sad to let her go. Crazy.
Well, in many ways, because I suppose if you're learning, like, take like a year to sort of get to the dialogue, you've got to sort of spend a lot of time with that character, aren't you? Sort of, you would have obviously become attached.
Yeah. My poor old partner, I have to put up with me sitting in this room going through the lines, and she cries quite a bit anyway, so sobbing the bleeding heart out. It's like, but you have to get to those points to kind of to know how far you can go and when to pull back. But yeah, it was great. It was really good. And episode 5, I got to cry a lot as well in the last one, so that was quite.
I think we'll have to get the link from Amazon and maybe post it in our bio. So people just check it out, because I know it's been on my watch list for ages, but obviously I'm a dad and a business owner, so that always comes up. I'm definitely gonna have to watch them soon, because they do sound fantastic.
Yeah, they're good. They're fun. And then more recently, I've been, so last year. Do you want me to go on for?
You keep going. You keep going as long as you want.
Bug. I'll just have some more of my non-alcoholic bitter.
Punk as fuck, Brewdog. Have I just literally done an advert?
Well, we need paying now.
Yeah.
Oh,
there you go.
I know who we're tagging in this video.
Yeah, Brewdog. Well, a few here soon.
This is dry January when we're filming. It's just to explain. There's always something about non-alcoholic lager and beer that tastes good to start with, and then there's just something missing, isn't there?
I know something that I do. Something I've noticed. Someone I know drinks non-alcoholic beer, and what I always notice is it smells like weed.
So there's Desperados, the beer. I always find. You ever drinking Desperado?
Yeah, I don't know whether they're making that and smoking that during the production.
Oh, dropping it in.
Yeah.
Call it a freebie in the business.
We're all thinking we're getting drunk, but really we're getting high, getting lit, they say in the team. Yeah,
did you just say lit?
That's what the young ones say, isn't it? Lit.
We'll not that podcast.
Or Americans. Americans say it. Hashtag lit.
They're putting hemp into everything these days. Well, so while we're on drugs, just
not literally.
Quick story. No, not literally, not anymore. But quick story from the past. When I was 19, and Clive wasn't famous. He was like, we were doing this fringe theatre company. He was like 22, 23, and he was just writing the Books of Blood, but they hadn't been published, so he was completely unknown. And he'd written the first few, but he wasn't very happy on the titles for them. So he threw a party, and I went to this party, and I took along my famous brownies.
Famous indeed.
So I took them on and left them on the table, and the party started, and I went back and they'd all gone. I went, Clive, where's all the brownies gone? He's got a really sweet tooth, and he'd eaten all the brownies.
Oh God.
He actually he went to bed that night, and he woke up and he had all the titles for all the books of blood, and he credits me with that. And there's a famous Comic Con interview that's on YouTube of him with, I can never remember the actor's name. He was in, I can't remember his name. Very, very, very famous actor. And Clive's telling this story about Si and his famous brownies, and how Bradley Cooper.
Oh, cool.
Oh yeah, Midnight Meat Train. Yes.
Yeah. So there's Clive and Bradley Cooper chatting away, talking about me and my famous brownies, and Clive saying at Comic Con that he credits me with the titles for all of the Books of Blood series 1 because of my, yes. So that's my story about brownies.
Could you imagine though, if he had some of your brownies and the next day, like I know a month later, he said, "Oh, I've just written a Nightbreed." Yeah. You'd be like, "Can I have? Yes, I'll forget saying thank you. Where's the money?
Yeah.
Don't pay me in brownies."
I don't know, brownies sound pretty good, don't they? But people are creating magic on the brownies. I feel like this is what we need.
If you send us some brownies, we might try some, and we'll see where it goes on the podcast live.
Oh, that'll be fun, yeah.
It's a very drug-related podcast.
No, yeah.
Just to go back, I was going to talk about what I'd done last year.
Yes.
Hug myself. So last year was a busy year, considering we were in COVID. I was counting, I think it's 5 films of various standards, but 2 of which I did do over a Zoom call, which is kind of a weird way to do a film. One to LA, a company in LA were doing a film called 13 Ghosts. I think it's called 13 Ghosts. I can't remember.
14 Ghosts, I think. It says on your IMDb it's 14 Ghosts. Sorry, don't need to say how your career went.
Chad your agent. Chad your agent.
Yeah.
I'm glad you've done some research, because I haven't. 14 Ghosts, yeah. So I played this. They wanted, everything else was filmed in LA, but they wanted this English owner of an art gallery, and whose gallery was being infested by ghosts. So pieces of art were coming to life, things were flying around, statues were beginning to kind of morph into other things. So they wanted to, and this art gallery, this owner of the art gallery was contacting them via a Zoom call to ask for help. Hence why I could do it on a Zoom call. So I had people around me kind of throwing things at me and moving lights and swinging them around. And it came out all right, actually. Yeah. Whether it looked like on the film, I have no idea. And then I did another one by Zoom last year, which was the first science fiction film I've done. The tagline was "Look Up," and it was called Skyquake. Skyquake, which I didn't know was a real thing. Have you heard of Skyquake?
I've never heard of it.
No.
Evidently, it's a real thing, and it's these noises that are coming out of the sky that sound almost like mechanical noises. And that if you look on YouTube, Benji, no, sorry, it's my dog. No. Sorry, I bought him a toy basket. He's got so many toys, and it's wicker, and now he's taken all the toys out. He's eating the basket.
Bring Benji in if you must. It's fine.
Oh, hashtag dogs.
Yeah. Dog lovers, beware. We now are dog friendly. We always were.
Yeah. Why?
Ah, look at him.
Benji, this is Benji. Benji, look.
He's like, oh, my first podcast. Is this his first podcast?
No, I think it's his 3rd now. Actually.
Oh, really?
Oh, maybe have the exclusive.
We want the exclusive then. Sign the contracts.
He's saying, "Oh, you're doing that strange thing where you're talking to yourself and you're picking me up again, are you?"
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you doing Skyquake too, Dad?
Yeah. Don't eat the basket. Good boy.
Never had a dog on the show before.
No, there's a lot of exclusive firsts in this podcast. There really is.
So Skyquake
was
this. It starts with his father talking to camera, and ends with his father talking to camera about his daughter who's gone missing. And it's the premise for my scenes were that a film crew had come to my house to interview me about my missing daughter and about these skyquakes that were happening. And what I was saying before Benji ate the basket was, if you go on YouTube and put in Skyquake, there are all these videos of skyquakes, which I didn't know when I accepted it. I thought it was a fictional premise, but it's not. So yes, and then I think it's filming in Hungary, but my bits were done in just outside Stamford in Lincolnshire. And so yes, so that's that one. Then I did an anthology film called Mosaic, where I play my first cop ever, shaved my head for the second time in my career, shaved my head. And it's an anthology and there are lots of different mini stories. And then this cop is trying to work out how they all interlink because they seem completely different, but there is something that links them together, and he's trying to work out how it can all work and what the hell's going on with the help of his stop eating. Now the dog's eating Mrs. Wiltshire. Leave her alone.
That's an episode of Dog Ditties, that is.
Yeah. Episode 7, there you go. Need some royalties for that.
Yeah, the extras. Director's cut content. Oh.
Leave the old lady alone. There you go. Good boy. So yes, that's called Mosaic. That should come out this year, 2022. And what else did I do? So there's Stained, which hopefully we will get to film this year. I don't know if it'll come out this year or next year. And Dad has just come out. So there was terrible, and you can't remember what you've done. There were 2 others as well, but I can't remember what they are.
Are any of the ones that you filmed over the last year, have they been released yet?
No. In fact, Dad was filmed 2 years ago, so that's taken 2 years to come out because of COVID, which was very frustrating because it's kind of zombie apocalypse, which is created by this pandemic, which happens. We were like screaming, we've got to get this film finished. Because it's so topical, not knowing 2 years ago when COVID was starting that we'd still be in it 2 years later, so there was no real rush. But I watched it with my parents for the first time a couple of days ago, and they were saying, gosh, it's really topical, it's all about this pandemic that's happening. And I'm going, yeah, I said, thankfully it is still topical. So yeah.
Well, that brings us to the end of our podcast. Sadly, very sadly, because you are a very hilarious man that I could speak to for a long time. We're coming to the end.
I think, like I said, I think we certainly have. There's probably many subjects we could probably talk about. So hopefully, you never know. Again, we could get you back on. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, part 2.
More
KY jelly, more Benji, more Skyquakes. You name it. We'll go nipples, more nipples. Yeah,
and brownies.
Yeah,
and Benji's arse.
And Benji's arse. Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Simon. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, hopefully we'll speak soon.
You're very welcome. I'll stop the caffeine until the next. I'll go caffeine free again until the next.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, you've been a delight.
Okay.
Thank you, Simon.
Cheers.
Wow. So from KY jelly, from nipples to brownies with Clive Barker. That was an amazing podcast. I very, very much enjoyed that. Big thank you to Simon Bamford. I'm just going to say check out everything he does, but obviously go on his IMDb, check out his films, check out Dark Ditties. Is that Ditties?
Dark Ditties.
Yeah, that's how you say it.
Amazon Prime.
We'll link it at the bottom.
Possibly 99p an episode. Apparently, hopefully, maybe $3.49 for an entire series, which is incredible.
Obviously, check out Hellraiser because they're classic. Check out Nightbreed. He was in Book of Blood. He was also, which I didn't mention to because I completely forgot, but he was in Quadrophenia.
Yes, Quadrophenia.
He was Bristol nightclub dancer, I do believe. And if
look out for Skyquake as well.
Yeah, and thanks guys. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you all next time.